Hello, I'm Nancy Daniels, a Community Vitality Specialist with K-State Research and Extension, and I'm here to review the Girard First Impressions Community Report with you. Let's begin. So the process goes like this. Girard asked for first impressions, and Burlington very quickly agreed to be its partner. We chose you because you are similar in size and far enough apart to be unfamiliar with each other. And then, as you know, events transpired that made us wait until October before I could train the visitors and tell them about the survey. And that's when I took photos of your town. 4 visitors came to Girard in 3 cars in October and November. And we hope that after this presentation tonight, you will have further discussion and create some action plans. First of all, why do we do first impressions? Well, the number one thing I expect that you'll find from tonight is a renewed sense of pride in your community. Because it's very often that we forget what our community looks like to others. And so once you get past that, then I hope that you'll see that there are other things that are opportunities for improvement. You may very well disagree with an observation that someone makes. In fact, you will see conflicting observations, but just be curious about why they might have seen it that way and whether or not it's worth considering and whether or not you can change that perception. Before we start, I think one of the things that you get from me is a new way of looking at things. Ben Winchester is a senior researcher at the University of Minnesota who has spent 20 years in rural sociology. And he wants us to know that he wants us to change the way that we talk about rural. Don't talk about how rural is dying. Talk about how it's changing. And the same thing is true of all of society. You're not different, but rural is changing. He finds data that says that brain gain, where 30 to 49-year-olds is the typical place that this happens, they come back to a community, and all we ever hear about is brain drain, where our kids leave and go away. But in fact, the research is clear that many people do come back. And after learning this research, in the 60 communities that I've done first impressions at, I've done a hand survey of people to find out how many of them would and could describe themselves that way. And some of them may have come back 30 years ago, but they would have been those same people who chose to come to a rural community. There have been times where 50% of the room describe themselves as brain game people. We are going to talk a lot about the way you look online because people research places that they want to live before they go there. And so it's important that you show them what you know about your community. Tell your story. And rural is in the middle of everywhere. It's not in the middle of nowhere. It is in the middle of everywhere. Whether you live in Girard or in Topeka, Kansas, where I live, the same thing is true. You live one place, you work another, and you play another. And as long as you have transportation and internet, everything is accessible to you. So Ben tells us that almost half of Kansans moved during the years 95 through 99. And we have no reason to think that that trend doesn't continue to go on. When they did a survey of newcomers in rural areas, they found out that a job isn't even in the top 10 reasons. Boom, does that blow your mind? That's not what we think, is it? In fact, what they come for is a simpler pace of life, safety and security, affordable housing, Outdoor recreation. We've really come to value that in the last year. The importance and the beauty of seeing a sunset or a sunrise and the ability to take a hike. Quality schools. If you're in the 30 to 49-year-old range, you're going to want to know that your kids are going to have a good educational experience. And so Ben wants us to work together in small towns to get to know each other and create a great quality of life. It's just amazing to me how often we don't know the people even in the room. Ben suggests, and I don't know anybody in Kansas that's taken him up on it yet, but Ben suggests having a newcomer meal where every so often you invite the newcomers and only the newcomers, and that's his suggestion, only the newcomers to the community, and find out who they are and let them look around the room and say, you mean I'm not the only one? It creates a sense of camaraderie and makes them feel engaged right away. You're going to see in your own data that just a few people change makes a big difference in your community. And we want to make sure that whether you gain new members or not, we know that you're going to lose members. People die. That's just a fact of life. So we actually have to gain members just to be sustainable. And when those newcomers come, don't pounce on them like fresh meat, but at the same time, people want to make a difference. So don't act like you have to be here for 20 years before you can be part of the community. And don't say it either, because our words are real things that affect how we feel about things. One thing that people in my generation need to understand is that many of us are over our baby boomers. 75% of those homes are owned by baby boomers. And if you're in a home that you raised your family in and you've got 3 to 4 bedrooms and now somebody else entertains the family, maybe consider letting loose of that house sooner, not later, and making your own home, either downtown in a loft apartment or in a maintenance-free building or multiplex. I am right now in my condo in Topeka where we don't have to mow the yard, and that's what we wanted, was a place that we didn't have to mow the yard. So that's the research. Now here's what's true about Girard. So notice that the red numbers are the Kansas average. The data for Girard says that you've lost 2.5% of your population in the last 8 years. Not a big drop, but not one you'd want to continue over time. Your median household income is lower than Kansas's, but that's not why people come here. You have about the same high school or GED level as the Kansas average, and your population is not as highly educated. Now, I would stop here, and sometimes it's hard to take in that data is neither good nor bad. It is just data that describes your community. Here in Topeka, I would love to find a workman to help me with certain projects, and they are hard to find. Do they need to be college educated? No, they do not. And so, the fact that your population isn't as highly educated is not bad data, it's just data. Your median age is a little younger than the Kansas average, which might also probably does contribute to the fact that there's a lower median household income. And of concern to all of us should be the poverty rate, where 18% of your population is living in poverty. And those probably aren't things that you can affect. It's got to do with policy, probably. So let's see what our visitors found when they looked for your online presence. They felt that there were good links to important city services and sites. The chamber link, there is a link to the chamber page from this page, but much of that information is dated. And these are great suggestions to help us improve the look of it. Maybe the information isn't outdated, but the dates imply that we haven't been paying attention to it or keeping it current. There are suggestions about letting us know about all the businesses. There is a suggestion that they'd like the chamber to let us know about all the businesses in town. In one community of a few thousand in Northeast Kansas, I had seen downtown, which was, just a few buildings. And that little group, that little pride organization told me we have 39 businesses in town. And sure enough, when they looked at all the plumbers, the people who were in business for themselves and ran their businesses out of their homes, there were 39 businesses in that tiny community. And that affects how you feel about yourself and how you look to others. There were some really good suggestions about style improvements on the webpage. And they noted the beauty of the courthouse, and they felt its history would be a really nice enhancement. There are a lot of people that I'm seeing in my Facebook friends that are taking road trips. And if you realize that and consider that and help them find you and make you appealing, that's a fantastic addition to your community's stability. When you see a comment that's in italics, it's my comment. And I would tell you that I thought it was fantastic that when I looked on Google Chrome, your website was the first one to load. However, there's some problem with the loading of the photos. On your Facebook page, the visitors said that the Crawford County events in this Facebook page did a good job of informing about community events. I always look for the number of Facebook pages that relate to your community, because those are an opportunity if you work together to co-market and make a bigger impact. So the first thing that we ask them to do is to drive through the community for 5 minutes without stopping and go to every corner, every entrance of the city. In reading the visitors' remarks, I was really impressed that from the very beginning, they were picturing themselves moving here. I witnessed that, and you will too when you read the comments. All 4 highway entrances were clean and inviting and well organized. They noticed a few eyesores, but not bad. Good signage to important civic assets, and the welcome signs were nicely designed, but they didn't feel they were very visible. Let's look at what they saw. Downtown was very appealing, generally good curb appeal. I'm often humbled at the pictures that I miss. The only picture I had of the courthouse was the side where the dumpsters were, so I had to capture one from Google Earth. We observed a couple of parts stores. They observed gift items and clothing. The customer service at all the places we visited was excellent. And boy, you just can't, that's invaluable. Kudos to all of you that greeted them. Again, they noted that the wide variety of businesses would make it easier for a new person to find all the goods and services they needed in one place. And again, high quality products. They noted, and this is impressive to me too, they recommended other shops, which is very impressive to your visitors. It shows a real sense of civic loyalty and commitment that we love. there are so many photos. I look at this building and I just dream of what it must be like to live in that top story or the second story, and what a great loft space that would be. It may seem like a lot of money to rehab it, but if you have just sold a house someplace for a good amount of money, why, that's a lot of money for you, for what you think it might be worth it, but it may be just the thing that they want. Vacant building sites really make you appreciate and value not getting rid of those buildings if you can. However, now that they're gone, this group says, let's think about an ad hoc group to take on for a creative solution, something to make that really fun and add to the place making sense that this community has. A new memory. They spent, and I did too, you've got a lot of buildings here, and I wanted you to see them all. I think the fresh view of a photo is extremely helpful. They found your people very friendly and eager to talk about the community. The hometown pride was evident. We saw it in more than one way, and they really loved that the businesses were busy. Boy, that's good news in October and November, and the clerks still acknowledged our presence. When you look at these photos like this, you really see the value of some paint, don't you? The other thing that I've become aware of is the value of clean, fresh windows. And that's an opportunity for entrepreneurship if someone wants to take on washing windows, or even just a point of civic challenge to store owners. I'm washing my windows today. Who wants to join me? So then we ask about the downtown amenities, the things that make you want to be downtown. And they noticed the corner landscape and the Girard benches. The reason they asked about restrooms is because we asked them about public restrooms. And so then they're commenting on the things we asked about. We asked about drinking fountains, benches, public restrooms, trash receptacles, and Wi-Fi as opportunities to make downtown more fun. The Wi-Fi availability is something that is a fun way to, a fun, inexpensive, maybe even free way to make downtown more welcoming. If you make each of your store sites have a public aspect to them, come together and learn how to do that together, and then create one central password so it appears to be just a seamless access to Wi-Fi. Even if we don't use it, that just creates a digital footprint that makes us feel welcome in your downtown. They saw a lot to be proud of. I noted you're a great place to call home. I just think that's a great logo. So other retails, what we coach them on is that, there's usually a downtown, and Girard fits this description, that in most small towns, there's a downtown, and then there's the highway that goes past where the Dollar General is and the convenience stores. And you fit that bill perfectly. And so they commented that the other retail areas included Dollar General, G&W, and Ace Hardware. They found them easy to find and access and well kept. And they noted that they received good service at the convenience stores. And that's good news. That's often the first place and the only place that a visitor stops. And so we want them to get a really friendly welcome at those places. Industrials parks. Even though there's a lot of various conflicting opinions about the industrial area, I would tell you this isn't an important part of the first impressions aspect. It's important to your town, but the truth of the matter is that a drive-by is not likely to be how an industry will find you. They should find you through the Department of Commerce and other resources. But pay attention to the fact it's really downtown probably that is the bigger opportunity, because small businesses, entrepreneurs who choose to start their small businesses are responsible for more than half of the new jobs in every state of the union. And so, maybe we can't support those locally, but with global marketing, we can make our town accessible to purchasers all over the world and those day trippers that are going to come down and see your town square. Healthcare services. They were impressed that they were all present. They were active, they were updated, and they appeared to be growing with the community. Now, see, the data doesn't support that, but their impression is that this is a growing, thriving community, and that's great. They were impressed with the services that were offered on the hospital's website. We asked them about physicians and dentists and optometrists and public health and other, and they found all of these things there. They didn't know why anybody would ever have to leave Girard to receive the health care that they need. So you need to make that as apparent as you can on your website, because this is a cradle to coffin type of community where you can do everything that you want. Assisted living is there. It looked nice and up to date. Looked like someplace we would want to live. And they noted the proximity to the hospital as a bonus. Now, housing is going to be an issue for every community in Kansas, and you're no exception. When I coach them, I talk to them about just reviewing the housing that's there, not necessarily the house that's available to buy or sell, because very seldom will we see very much of that. So they agreed there doesn't look like there's an overabundance of housing on the market. They look to Zillow, make sure, consider, do you have good online presence that tells about the availability of housing, and is there anything you can do to make that more apparent to people? They noticed a new housing development on the east side, and they felt that supplied a much needed mid-price housing option. One visitor got into the details enough to see the 10-year tax abatement for all taxing entities if you buy and remodel an existing property. And that visitor suggested that's probably the most aggressive program he's seen to persuade owners to invest and improve. So whatever you can do to make that more visible to as many people as possible, the better. I really try to get a smattering of homes from all over the community, but then when I'm mixing them up, sometimes I don't feel confident that it's well represented, but I was all over your town that day. I hope you can see it in the pictures that I've taken. Rental housing. What we tell them to do is go to the city hall. Now, in your case, we'll find out that city hall was closed. So I'm not certain whether they asked about rental housing, but one of the best practices I would suggest is that both city hall and, in your case, the chamber, have a listing of landlords. It's almost impossible to keep up with whether or not something's rented on a day-to-day basis. So just having a listing of landlords is the best practice that I've found. And so they could see some apartment and multi-unit living. This appears to be income eligible housing. Your data you may have better sources of data, but the data we use is from the census. And according to what we see, it appears that you actually do have more houses available than the Kansas average. That's potentially a problem, but it's also very potentially a great opportunity. We can't live in them if they're not available. Your owner occupation rate is just a little bit lower than the renter, but when you have a higher than usual low income population, this is, again, it's neither good data nor bad. If they align with each other, that might be just great, as long as things are kept up. I always like to, a family household is any household that has children under the age of 18 in it. And so when there's a higher than usual number of families, percentage of families, I think that bodes very well for the schools. Our visitors saw that you had all age ranges of education available here, from K through 8, and high school and post-secondary is available with an excellent Pittsburgh State program. It's interesting how concerned they were about the parking by the gym. It was cited more than once, as was the community pride that they saw in your schools. Head Start is available, income eligible Head Start. One of the things I thought, this photograph, one thing I always try to look for is walking accessibility to school. And we aren't great as visitors of really judging that, but it is something that you should think about. Can a kid walk to school safely on sidewalks? And there are grant programs for that too. Very attractive schools. Of particular interest to me is how well you have labeled these places that a grandparent or a visitor might go to. There are schools that do this very well, and then there are schools that are just big blank buildings, and we could walk all the way around the school and try to figure out which door is opened so that we can get into it and which ones aren't. You've done a great job. The middle school signage is not as evident, but I guess the people that go there know where to find it. So again, this has to do with visibility, right? We want to make sure that the school's information is out there and provides a good story about the schools. These remarks talk about the fact that there's excellent transparency documents on the website, including the Kansas State Department of Education reports. Unfortunately, not all the news is good. And when we send people diving into the data, they make up their own stories about what they're going to find. I don't suggest that you take any of that off of there. I think, this is a challenge to you because I think your transparency is excellent and communicates something really fabulous about your schools. Your community has told us that you love the schools. So tell us that story. Why is it that you love them? What do you love about them? I have seen communities that talk about their certain teachers just make certain programs shine. Tell us what it is about your school that makes that true. Just recently, I did Mound City, Kansas's first impressions, and by accident, I found an excellent example of a school that put it on the front page so that we could find it easily, why we love our schools. They chose data, and that's one way to do it, but stories also matter. Just remember that potential students are an audience for your website. So yes, it's true. We want to know what the school menu is so we can plan whether to take a sack lunch today. But we also want to know, why should I choose your school? Childcare is another area. We will always ask about it because the importance of childcare and economic development and allowing people to go to work is essential. It's also an essential part of early education that makes kids school ready and ready to succeed in schools. So we did not, our visitors won't see childcare, and that's actually kind of as expected. We don't necessarily want to put up a big sign saying there's a bunch of children here. So they asked people, and that's a perfectly fine way to do it. And they said, no, childcare is not a problem here. That may be true, or they may have asked somebody my age who's not talking to people who are looking for childcare. So the data tell us that your childcare capacity is about 65% of the need for childcare. I would tell you that this data is not very accessible to people. They often can't find it. Here's the source for your childcare data. And I would want you to know that if you feel that either childcare availability or quality or access are a problem, there are childcare specialists at Childcare Aware, which is the state childcare agency, who are willing to and anxious to help you to improve that. So faith and religion, there are many churches and many had great signs making it easy to find them. They were becoming and welcoming. Here's what that looks like. And yes, I'm aware that this probably isn't a current church, but it's just kind of a reminder that as much as you can, try to make it apparent to people what's inside a building and what's for them. So civic organizations, a really important part of your infrastructure. They could see on the city's website many clubs and organizations. And an unusual thing, something that we often do not see, is any civic activity. But they found it on the days that they were there, numerous signs indicating special events being organized by clubs. And so that's a fantastic thing. I, show you this picture to show you that the civic organization sign isn't bad, but in general, that doesn't give you the best visibility or first impression about your civic organizations. It appears to me that the community food bank is not functioning right now, but again, that's a visibility thing. It may be there, help people to know. And I noted several signs there, so I'm sure the people in your town can find what they need. So public infrastructure, this is specifically about not downtown. And so the things that they commented on is they felt that they were generally in good condition throughout. And one person said their favorite was the street signs. I assume it's these pretty enhanced street signs, which are not all over the town. And in general, they were above average. We ask again about public restrooms, thinking that they're probably at the park. One visitor said that they did not see public restrooms. It's really kind of surprising that this visitor was able to comment on LED lighting. It must be something that's of interest to them because we're not there during the evening, so we're not the best observers of lights. Some of the most valuable comments we get are the very specific comments, and in this case, the visitor gave me a picture, so I believe this is really what they were looking at. A few street signs in the residential areas needed help. And they were kind of surprised at these spools laying around, not only for appearance, but just surprised that they weren't being pilfered. So City Hall was closed during COVID, and you can make that choice since you have the Chamber of Commerce there to help. But the City Hall is basically where a new visitor who maybe that new school teacher who's just been hired would probably go. So make sure that you have the same information at the chamber office. And I'm not saying that you don't, because they certainly found really good experiences from the chamber. And I do not know whether the mayor visited with some of our people or whether that's a reflection of what they heard from others. Fire, EMS, and police services. This is, again, not our strong point. We can see the buildings, but we don't know about the services. I always put this down here as a reminder to the community that it's important to you and the rates that you pay on for your city, for your fire insurance, that your ISO protection is as good as it can get. There are some small rural volunteer fire departments who are not able to afford the training or the equipment that they need to keep that rating where it needs to be. I'm guessing that you are not in that shape. We saw nice infrastructure here in Crawford County. On Friday afternoon, they were not able to visit the library. I too am surprised that you chose Friday to be closed. I would have thought that was a day that people stopped in to get a video for the weekend or other end of the week services. The doors were locked and they were disappointed they could not view the little blue books or the Appeal to Reason, which they understood to be a big part of your community's history. And, you know, again, it's clearly posted here that on Friday they are closed. I'm just not sure why you chose Friday. And I think they were surprised too. There was some varying discussions about the parks and whether or not there were adequate parks. And so that might be a case of they just couldn't find them. I'm not sure. But that's something for you to look further into as you review their comments. The skate park and the basketball goals have to be a popular gathering spot for the tweens and teens. Here's what I saw in the pool and the parks. In this park, the tables look like they need some help, and there's some that may be a problem there for safety, and it's certainly not very appealing. Just wanted to highlight a nice grant that's available to replace picnic tables and playground underlayment. So we asked them for recreation and tourism. Is Girard known for an attraction or event? Do they have a slogan? And it's interesting how slogans don't work their way into their mindset, because they saw those all over town. But they thought maybe it was the deer head had something to do with the deer. Somebody else saw a coffee table book called A Great Place to Call Home. Very supportive. They noted again the pride and the support that you had for your teams. One visitor came to this more than often than once, was sad that these utilities were in front of this statue, or maybe that the statue was put where the utilities were. I'm not sure which. They, kudos to you, even in this pandemic years, they saw evidence on your website of all the fun things that you do. And maybe you have them there, but one thing I would suggest is that photos of your community having fun together, photos of ladies' night with 300 people are just a great way to help us see that this is a place that enjoys each other and the time that we spend together. You've done all the work, you've had the fun, now show it to us later. Natural or man-made features, they saw your downtown murals, they saw the Girard Museum. Greenbush is an asset that if we understood all the things that Greenbush brings to Southeast Kansas and even to the state, we would and could be appreciative. Camping areas at the fairgrounds that they observed. Some of the top things to do in TripAdvisor include the St. Aloysius Church site, the Vietnam War Memorial, and the Girard History Museum. And again, one person said, boy, I'd like to go back and visit the courthouse for the things that it has to offer. We asked about a visitor center, and you did have a good visitor center. I find these that's a great, big, nice sign, but I find those window signs to be difficult to spot. And so it might be, this doesn't say Girard, but it might be a sidewalk sign or something that could make it more apparent to us. But they saw great handouts and web information, lots of activities and promotion. So I'm going to invite you to spend some time on these comments because they're just really positive. I included them pretty much verbatim because the comments are just very positive. And I think that what would bring you back is an important aspect of it. They had great food and service at the East Side Diner. They talked again about the fun they had downtown and how they cross-promoted. They didn't get to go to Chicken Annie's, but they definitely would come back to meet there, and they'd like to come back to see the Carnegie. I'm so glad that they maintained it. I don't know whether anybody else is surprised by the appreciation for the jeweler and that you have the ability to work on clocks here. And I can understand why that may be a pull for people from other places. The most positive observations, again, spend some time with this. Very clean and nice. That's hard to attain because it depends so much on all the people in town. Look at this. I would be very proud to be part of this community, and it's a community I would consider living in. Wow, that's high praise from a visitor to be thinking about that. They found out that the turf was paid for by businesses and for the school facilities, and that speaks just volumes to people. So, you know, those are stories. There are lots of clues for stories you can tell to your public from these visitors' comments. There would be nothing wrong with quoting a first impressions visitor in any way that you wanted to. Top-notch hospitals, pride in the schools, beautiful city courthouse square. Truly enjoyed the time. 6 months from now, I will remember how welcoming the people were, the fun first impression. I would come back to the painted barrels and other programs. And again, a comment about this tax abatement to remodel. Some great retailers that support locals, other locals. The more you can bring day trippers to your town to enjoy these things. And I hate to pick on the library again, but honestly, Friday or Monday would be probably Friday would be a prime time when day trippers might choose to go visit. What will you remember? Many of the same things are repeated in these comments. They're worth taking note of. Okay, so some recommendations that I would have and like to have you think about. You know, one of the reasons we do this is not to give the city a laundry list of jobs to do. This is a job for all of us, and you are doing the hard work. You've made it a friendly place, a place people want to be. It's generally clean and picked up. That's fantastic. But look around your community. What are you inspired to take on as a new opportunity? update those chamber web pages. If nothing else, then update the dates so that we know that they're fresh, that's fresh information. Tell your story about the school so that we know why you love them. You have a great coffee shop. Take a moment for some of your people, some of those people who have Facebook sites, to sit down with coffee and calendars and gather to cross promote each other. I'm going to tell you about the concept of idea friendly. Have some idea friendly gatherings to utilize those empty lots. And then, oh my gosh, there are some aspects of filling empty buildings. And I just really think that your baby boomer lofts in downtown could be spectacular. I'd like to thank the people who made this possible, the people who were willing to go to Burlington and give feedback to them so that we could get feedback from Burlington. That was Julie Smith from K-State Research and Extension. She instigated this effort in the first few months she was employed. Never seen anybody come to orientation and within a month ask for the service. Jessica Ripper, who was complimented more than once, Carolyn Zaganal, I'm sorry, Carolyn, if I mispronounced that, and Ron Gates. So that's the first impressions presentation, and we could stop here for questions, but I have a few more assets that I'd like to tell you about where you can move your community. From thinking about problems, what's on the other side of every problem is an opportunity. So let's change the way we talk. Just in the last few months, there has been a story about climate change refugees. There isn't a community in America where we're not seeing a transition from the coast to higher ground. And in Kansas, one of the things that kept us from being an ideal place to live was that some parts of Kansas don't have enough water, and that's not your problem. So be aware of this opportunity. Kansas Pride has been celebrated its 50th year in 2020. It helps local communities identify what they would like to preserve, create, or improve. It really helps them take this first impressions and help you create systemic ways to move forward. I teach grant writing workshops. We could hold one for your community, or you as individuals can join someone else's. They're all online now, so you don't have to be in liberal Kansas or in Minneapolis, Kansas to take the workshop, and I'll show you later where they're listed. Our grant writers have written 36% of them report that within a year, they've written $25 million of successful grants. Those small entrepreneurs, those small businesses, we want them to know what's available to them. And so the first Friday of every month, we hold a First Friday e-call. And it is a way to let you know about resources that are available. There's a community calendar of events, and this is where you can find out about the next First Friday calls. And it's also where you can find about upcoming grant workshops. And all of the previous calls are recorded on this website, so you can go look at the videos from those. There's a couple of resources I'm just really enthused about. You may already know about these, but Small Biz Survival and Savior.town. They, if you subscribe to one, you'll get the input from both. It's Becky McRae and Deb Brown. These ladies know small towns. We're going to talk about the difference that the pandemic has made, but I highly recommend, if you're interested in your small town, subscribe to their weekly newsletter, which is always has something worth hearing. Did you know, they're going to tell us that according to Gallup, there is only one age group in America whose first choice for living is not rural. And even among the under 30 group, Their second choice was rural towns. Look at this, rural area. Everyone's first choice except for under 30. And what we're seeing is, according to Upwork, a very recent article, the pivot to remote work is the biggest, fastest transformation of the labor market since the World War II mobilization. You can explore that data further, but just be aware that there's transformation happening. So this is Becky and Deb again, and this is, if you subscribe to their things, you will get information about their monthly live webinars. They're available via recording. Since the pandemic, they've started making them only $5 a month. And they encourage you to watch them as watch parties. If one person pays, they can have as many people as they want to be part of that. We are a community of possibilities, not a problem. It's not about what this town used to be. It's about what it can be. So I talked about the coffee and calendars, which is what Becky and Deb call it. Here's an article in just in the last 2 months from Maple Hill, Kansas, where these two businesses in a population of 600 have gotten together and they coordinate business hours and promotions to help cross-pollinate between the two of them. Want you to know that the Kansas Department of Agriculture would be happy to partner with your community to find the best opportunities for growth. And then one more K-State research and extension project is the Rural Grocery Initiative. It's now called the Kansas Healthy Food Initiative. And they can offer technical assistance and financing to develop new or renovate fresh food retail in communities across Kansas. So very, very quickly, that was the resources I'd like you to know about. I hope you find something that's of use to you, and I hope you'll know, Julie knows, that we are here to help and support you, and thank you for your time.